Okay, good morning and welcome to Sunday Story Hour, where we share real life stories of how human design has helped people tell a richer, more empowered story of who they really are. I'm Kathy Bashanko, and my guest this week is Monika Bravo. And hi, Monika. Monika is a 6'2" emotional manifester, and I met Monika in the Intuitive Human Design group. Excuse me. In the Intuitive Human Design group, where she is a regular contributor, and she has a really great set of history as a 6'2" role model, off the roof now. She's done a lot of things with fashion and art, and I'm going to let her tell a little bit about herself. And Monika, if you feel correct in diving right into your human design story from that would be awesome.
Great.
Morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here, for inviting me. I also like to be invited at times to contribute. Yeah, this is a very special moment because I feel that when we connect to ourselves, it's very valuable, but also when we start connecting to others. And then in that relationship of sharing stories, we can actually connect to the collective. So that for me is very important. So I have a very eclectic I don't know if I want to say past, but I'm a polymath. I'm an artist. I'm a professional artist. I do a lot of immersive and very big public artworks that are commissioned to me. So I tend to spend a lot of time doing research and then engaging in practices where I can self-inquire myself and relationship to what the community needs and what I'm hired to do that. So human design has helped me a lot, supported that process, because there's always this self-inquiry aspect of it. But I don't know, maybe I will be much better if you ask me questions more direct, because I can go from here.
Sure.
I can go to Jupiter and then Mars and Pluto and then get everybody lost.
Sure, I get that, right? So I appreciate that, because I never want to interrupt a manifester.
No, please. I mean, I'm informing you in a
Right,
very
I
kind way
appreciate that.
I would love to have some
Okay.
input. Yeah.
So I'd love it if you would start with a little bit about where you were at when you first learned about being a manifester and what it was like for you to discover the truth in your chart of, all this stuff that you might have thought about yourself, or just what that meant to you, how you found it, and then what it meant to you when you found it.
Okay. So I think human design found me doing an evolutionary astrology reading that I did with he became my mentor, Simon Foster. That was somewhere around 2017. I was at my lowest of my lowest in my lifetime. It was a time where I wanted to end my life. I had just gone through my car return. I had ended a marriage of 20 years. I was in a place that I could say, people would say like I was lost. I don't think I was lost. I was just like noticing that I was not in resonance with the universe, and everything was really dissonant, like nothing would work. And I tend to follow my truth always, and so things always happen to me. So this was the first time in my life where things were hard, and not that I consider myself lucky, but it was like, okay, the universe is really telling me something is not okay. So a series of events, long stories, led me to start engaging with people online, doing stuff that I knew how to do before. Like I do these workshops in communities for public art, but then I was engaged on one-on-one things just way before Zoom was a thing. I started doing these things, and I noticed that the people that they were engaging in these workshops, they were called the Well, based on the 48th hexagram. They really liked the part where I was asking them a lot about their natal chart. And I had studied astrology before 2 times, but I have never professed it in a way. So I went and I made a wish that I really wanted to get a very good chart reading. I found this man, and during the first reading he did, and I have done many readings for years for real. Astrology and me, we go back since I was like 11 years old, and also Taoism, because I studied, that's another thing I want to talk about a little bit later. So I asked, like in the middle of, not even 10 minutes into the reading, he says, oh, and by the way, you're a manifestor. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I'm a Taurus and my moon is in Scorpio. He was like, no. Then he shows me the body graph, and I was like, what the hell is that? So I was really interested, and he was just showing me, he was not doing a reading of human design, but I think that he felt that it was important to show me another aspect of myself, because in the place where I found myself at the moment, my question to him during the reading was, what did I do wrong in my life? I'm 51 or whatever I was at the time, a little bit more. Did I make a mistake? Because I just didn't understand that I had done every possible thing to be sovereign. And there I was, feeling miserable, wanted to end my life, which I never really had depression in my life. I'm quite optimistic. So when he said to me, you're a manifestor and you're an emotional manifestor, and you're supposed to wait to make decisions, and you're supposed to inform, I was like, okay, say that again. So that's when it got into me, like it was given to me.
Okay. So yeah. And you and I share the 3955, which is, for those watching who don't know, 3955 connects the root to the solar plexus. It's individual energy, and it's has a lot of melancholy. And I know when I was on the roof, I, went to my doctor and for a while tried like some serotonin reuptake, and I'm like, why do I always feel like this? And it sounds like yours was even more extreme, but there were so many times where I was like, why can't I just be happy? And I was in my head about trying to figure it out, but really it was the melancholy for me.
But this
went
was
all the way to depression.
But this one was very particular because the south node of the moon was going through my 55th gate. So it was like actually the line of destiny saying, hey, and I have my Saturn there. So it's like, what kind of structured life you're not really following that is really in tune with spirit? What is it that you're not really following? So it was just very particular that moment, because I am not at all depressive. In the contrary, I have learned through Taoist practice. I've been doing Taoism for more than 25 years. I was taught by my teachers to really allow my emotions to be part of my daily life, and instead of like rejecting them and pushing them away, to use them. So I had always two emotions that led me. Obviously, you will guess which one was the one: anger. So anger became my best friend. It became, so when I was too frustrated with the anger, like really, I knew that I had to change perspective to get things flowing. So that's how I have really been able to be an artist. I mean, I'm an artist and I'm self-employed, and I have to trust what I do. I don't have a job. I mean, I do have, I get paid for that, but I have to trust this craziness or whatever I have in order to just channel that emotional energy into something. So I do have two emotional channels. I have the 3955. And an interesting thing, the two channels are stemming from the root, but they're unconscious. And then I think 1949, they're unconscious. And then the 3955 starts with unconscious and then goes to the conscious. So I didn't know that that was happening. I mean, I was not conscious until it became conscious to me, like what to do with that energy.
Yeah. And, I'm looking, and it's interesting because both of the gates that you have that connect to your solar plexus are your two Saturn gates. So one is your unconscious Saturn in gate 49, and one is your conscious Saturn in gate 55. And I'm noticing that, I don't know, I don't think you and I talked about this, but you're just coming out of you're still in the ending bit of your Saturn return.
It's still there because Saturn is going back over this retrograde. And so it's going to touch back. My Saturn's at 3 degrees. It's in the fourth line of the 55. So it's going to go back to 0. So it's going to go, I'm going to have a Saturn return that touches 3 times. So this is awesome because I love Saturn. Saturn has been my biggest, with Chiron, has been my biggest teacher. Also, like for those who speak a little bit of astrology, Saturn rules my south node. I'm a Capricorn, south node, Cancer, moon. The moon rules my north node, my direction of my life. So for me, Saturn was something that I never really understood because Saturn is in Pisces. So Saturn in Pisces doesn't really have a definition because Neptune is, and Pisces is the end of things, and Saturn is what defines our reality. And I have a multiple in my chart. I'm not going to go to my astrology chart. So it took me a long time to understand. And I have come with this phrase that came to me through a dream, because I'm very connected to the dream world. This says, and it's very much about the 55, Saturn 55. Came around 2 years ago. It says, abundance defines form. So very complex because abundance, we think that abundance is what is material that you can touch. Like, I have a house and I have riches or whatever. And so people define their abundance based on the materiality. For me, what I received was the contrary. In order for you to feel emotionally connected to something that is material abundant, you have to trust spirit. So abundance starts and defines the form, not the other way around. So this is very much connected to that gate. It's very complex. I'm very mystical. So I'm always trying to go into the depth of the definitions that are giving. Like, I appreciate Ross' way of expressing things, but it speaks very much about the time when he got the information. It speaks very much about who he was. And I feel that right now people are slowly starting to find the way to connect to those beautiful teachings that, by the way, people don't know this, he did not create human design. He downloaded information. This is coming from a paradigm of 4 ancestral, very wise paradigms. And people don't know that the gene keys come from the human design. And sometimes it gives me frustration because I go, it's not that this person invented it. That's why it's so important that we get in touch with our own experiment, because we are human design. Human design is not book.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And that's why when people talk about source material and only doing things when Ra said, like you said, Ra wasn't the source, Ra was the conduit, right?
At that time, which is wonderful.
Yeah, at that time, right. And we're conduits as well.
Yes, of course. And the interesting thing, I've been going down the rabbit hole really, really like in the last months on the basis, because it's interesting because there's very little material about it. And the material that he wrote about the base, he was actually still redefining because he was discovering. One of the beautiful things, when I started looking at human design, as soon as I saw the mandala, I was like, oh, this is the I Ching. I've studied the I Ching for 20 years. I had a teacher, Taoist teacher, Chinese lineage, where this information is not found on books. I don't want to sound pretentious, but this is given to you by somebody who has the deep knowledge. Right. It's transferred to you. It's a transmission. It's not like a Google thing. It's not AI telling you what to do. Yeah. Nothing like that, because you have to practice it with your health. So I don't do doctors like doctors. I've done Chinese medicine since I was little. Actually, I had dreams. It's very interesting. I had dreams when I was little, telling my mom to take me to the needle guy. Mommy, take me to the needle. And she was like, what are you talking about? You want another injection? I said, I don't want vaccines. I want the needle guy. Until she figured out that what I was asking was acupuncture. Wow. So I have this connection with Chinese culture that when I saw, that's why I got so attracted to human design, because when I saw it, I said, oh, if this person is using the time, because the I Ching is about time. So he's using the time sequence. This is very profound. And then the Kabbalah, I mean, I've studied all of them. I studied really for years. So yeah. Yeah.
So let me back you up a little bit, because you just talked about a lot of things. And I want to remember that, we want to do, we want to be, kind of.
Yeah, ground me. Don't worry.
We want to kind of keep it, in a little bit more elementary. Like you mentioned something about the base, that Rod didn't talk a lot about the base. And the way I understood is he doesn't talk about it because very few people can be confident enough in their exact precise birth time to be able to go that deep in the level. And so for people who are watching, when you look at your chart, the chart will list your gate with a decimal point of the line. And then it's possible to extend that line out. So after the line comes the color, and then there's another decimal, and then there's the tone. And then underneath the tone is what's called the base. And there's 6 lines, 6 colors, 6 tones, and 5 bases.
And what you're dividing there is time. Again, right. I Ching is a clock. So you're dividing the time, and because nothing is perfect in between 360 degrees, because you divide 360 degrees by 64, you get 5.626, and so on and so forth. So that's how you can decipher that every week, kind of like 5 days, 0.626, we have a new gate. And then within that gate, we divide it in 6, and you get like more or less a day of a line, and so on and so forth. So when you have a difference of 8 minutes, which is the base, and you're not so correct, yes, your base is going to be different. And the base is something that you cannot really base it. And this is the reason why I'm so interested in the base, because the base is as the word says, is the origin of everything. Is the moment that the crystal got into, the neutrino got into the crystal and really made everything happen. And it's the only thing that is so connected to the soul. I mean, I know Ra didn't want to talk about mysticism, because he had some kind of aversion, but he's actually talking about the soul with the base, and you cannot change the base. You will always have the same base. And this, when I found this, I was
Yeah,
like,
I heard that.
oh, so
Like-
beautiful. Yeah, so beautiful. Because that means, yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Because, you're saying that quickly. So like I've heard that, but for other people,
Well, I was about to explain. So
okay,
what is
sure.
the most beautiful thing is this, is like, we are told, according to any religion, that we come from source. So source could be God, could be Christ, could be the Virgin, could be whatever. It doesn't matter what the name is, but there is some sort of force, life force, that is connecting us together, right?
Mhm.
In heaven, in hell, in the ether, it doesn't matter. We get so caught up with words. But the beautiful thing is that the base in itself, when you define it, you go down, down, down to the very basic of the whole thing. So you realize that if you cannot change your base ever, that means that that's part of the spirit. So spirit is everything. It's like in the Tao is called Wu Ji. It's nothing, emptiness, Buddhism. And then when it splits into the yin and yang, the Tai Chi, then we're all like broken. And that base is that crystal that it breaks, and it carries your essence forever. And so this is the evolutionary path that we all have. And that's why we meet different conditions at different times when we land in our families, our gender, our historical moments. This is really what defines. So it's beautiful, because the base is about positioning and orientation. So your base is going to tell you, I mean, where is your vibration going? It's very complex. It's like,
Yeah.
and I'm able to connect all these things because that's what I do all the time. But basically what it is like, when you get to see what your base is, like I'm base 1, it makes sense to me, many things. And then I cannot tweak it, because you see what we try to do with human design sometimes is like, we don't like our type. We don't like our authority, and we try to tweak it, like everything, until we surrender one day and we say, oh, maybe that S and A has a point. After
authority. Yeah.
I did it for 3 years, I was like, I'm not going to do the emotional thing. I don't want to wait. And then I would test. And now it's like, of course, even any kind of decisions, I have to wait. And I just do it in a way that is very self-inquiry. I put the question out there, I let it be, then I come back on and off and see how it feels, because it's very emotional. How does it feel, this thing? How would it feel to be like that? How would it feel to go back to Colombia? How would it feel? And then all of a sudden, boom, it comes and it goes, okay, I'm leaving, like that. But it took me a while, because as a manifester, I want to do everything now my way or the highway. And I have the 2838. So it's absolutely my way or the highway.
Yeah, 2838 is in fact, you said you have a different way you look. Was that you that was saying you don't think of it as the channel of struggle, you think of it differently?
Yeah,
right?
Well, struggle, you see, this is thing with a lot of the words. For me, words have a lot. I speak 6 languages. So words for me are very emotional. They carry a charge. Like, in the beginning was the word, that's in the Bible. So it has so much vibration. So when you hear the word struggle, I'm already going like, I know I don't want to do it. So it's just too much for me. So I say, well, what are the good things about me not giving up? Because I don't. So and I know that the 38 gate is called endurance. It's more like durability, but I really pair, and they're very connected, the ability to not give up to endurance, because endurance means duration. It means a moment in time that I want to expand and try another time. So it happens to sometimes like I cannot achieve something, whatever that is, whatever, it could be little, could be big. And I just breathe and I go, all right. And I speak in plural, I say, we're going to do this. And a voice says, go out for a walk. And then when I'm walking, I go, okay, how am I going to do it? And then something comes and goes, try this. And I go back and it happens. So I don't give up. It's not a struggle. I'm not pushing, or I'm not, no, I'm just knowing that I will come back. And when I come back, I have what I need, because that's what it needs. The energy needs to go up. So what's going on?
Now I'm curious, because you live in Miami, but I don't know, like when you go for a walk, are you in the public aura? Because you're a triple split. So I'm wondering if the walk connects your head and your defined head and ajna to your throat and your will in a way that allows you to get those downloads, or are you walking alone?
Oh, okay. So I have become very wary of people. I have a 27-6, so I only connect to people who are at this point in my life, and it's no judgment, it's really truth because it really works. I connect to people intimately, more close, small circle, to people who are already on a path of self-inquiry, because I don't want to do the work for other people, because that's my conditioning, like taking care of everybody. So when I go out for the triple split, I actually go to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
When I have friends that go, let's go to the beach, and I have to really, really feel the energy if I want their energy with me for such a long time, like 4 hours. That's a long time for me. 4 hours is like, eh. So I'll go, okay, you know what we're gonna do? I'll be there, and then you just drop by, and then I'll leave. So it's not like we're going together. Like I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't go to restaurants and stuff like that. I only go to a couple of places where I can sit down and just be around and look, and they know me. So I sit down and I ask for something quick, and I'm there with the people, but I'm not. No, I guard my energy a lot.
But as a triple split myself, I know that yeah, that's tricky because, especially I have an open sacral as well. And I think, or just openness in general, when you're connecting, but you're also, you got to just let that go through and not take it on. It's good to be a little bit guarded, but as a triple split, we have sections. I'm speaking for people who might not know what I'm talking about. We have centers that are connected that don't speak to other centers that are connected. So there's 3 different groups of centers, and it's helpful to go out. It's really necessary to connect to other. Well, right now the transits are helping with that too. So
the transits help, and right now I have my cycle defined, whatever. And it feels good. But this is what I do. So I'm an artist and I work all the time. I get big commissions, and so I have to hire people to be part of my group that I have to direct. So the biggest thing that I learned as a manifestor, I learned a little bit before, but then I was able to apply, is to be able to delegate. But in order for me to delegate, I have to trust the person. So in order to trust the person, I have to trust myself. So it always comes back to me. So when I hire people, first of all, it's like, what's your birthday? And if they already react to that, like what? I'm like, not interested. They have to be on my level. I don't. Mm-hmm. So then I look at the chart and see, what is this person bringing? So, funny thing, all my production assistants have an open route.
Interesting.
I love that. And most of them have the 53.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're open. And I define, but they do things for me like this. A lot of them have the 26 gate.
Okay, go back. The 53, just so people know what she's talking about, is Monika has the hanging gate 42, which is the energy to finish, and the gate 53 is the energy to start.
It's a collective channel that it's abstract channel that is about cycles.
So I have the 53.
Yeah, great. So if I have this, I have right now somebody. She's very good at saying during the week, like beginning of the week, okay, so this week we have to do this and this and that, and I go, okay, go ahead, you start, and then we meet once a week for a few hours, and then I wrap things up. I go, no, yes, and I'm writing a book right now, and I do the same. Some person has another person, she has 53, so I go, okay, listen to me, bloom, 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 and then I wrap things up. So I have found that this is happening, but I don't go through the chart and think. I actually attract this kind of people for what I need, and I have to trust. I have made, for instance, 2 years ago, this is interesting because I have a spleen that is defined, but my authority is emotional. But I have the 44, which is very much about smelling. Also the 28 is like, I can smell BS like far away. I can smell when people are like that. So I had a very big project, and we were looking for the people. And then one of the persons, he sent me the stuff, and I was like, but I didn't pay attention to that because my other assistant, the one that is good, she's like, don't worry, I know him and he's going to deliver. I felt like doesn't smell good, and I didn't trust my body, and it became a problem within weeks. But I'm so fast that I was like, this is a liability, huge liability to work with this guy, because I already had smelled that he was not the right person. And I'm telling you, I'm smelling from far away. He was in France. So it's not about being physical.
Right.
It's about like knowing that you have that instinct. You go like, no. So I do use the emotional, but if it has to be something quick to tell me something, the spleen is always gonna, like the instinct.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me because I also have the defined spleen with emotional authority. And so this whole time that I was learning about my design, I was just kind of like, oh, and I have a defined spleen, but I never really tried to learn it until it totally, I had a whole story I told that I won't go into because this is your story hour, but where my spleen basically knocked me down and said, you better start listening because I'm going to keep telling you this harder. And so I really have had to learn that if my spleen says no, at least it at least means no, not now. And don't ignore it in the moment just because you don't have clarity over time. In the
Absolutely.
moment, you have to listen to the spleen.
And if it's something that is related, for instance, the spleen, maybe some people know it's directly connected to the lymphatic system, and the lymphs are really cleaning a lot of the toxins. So if we are not really connected to that energy, we tend to accumulate toxicity in ways that is not good. So we stay in relationships, we stay in jobs, we stay in things that they're not good for us because we're afraid of what's going to happen. I have a brother that has completely open, like nothing there. And when I talk to him, it's like, just try, and he could be so, just trust. He goes, no, but what about this? And I'm like, okay. So he's always in the worst case scenario because he's very fearful. But, I get it. Like, I don't have that. I'm like, the contrary. I'm like, that doesn't, and I'm telling you, sometimes when I allow other person to tell me something, it was my responsibility, it was not hers. And it was my bad. I took the responsibility and I said, I'm sorry, this is not going to happen again, because I'm not going to let the person tell me this, because at the very end, I'm driving the boat. I'm the skipper of my life.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit, if that's okay. I fear in the middle of something, I don't want to interrupt, but I want to talk about, I want to talk about so many things, but first I want to talk about your defined will and the 2145 energy. And I know you have a lot to say about that, but I just want to introduce it to people as this is the channel that connects the will center straight to the throat. And I know Ra, in his teachings of it, used to say that this was really hard energy for a person to have themselves, not so much for them, but for everybody around them, because it's so like, I am, and there's nothing interrupting that. It's this really strong tribal energy of the tribal leader and the resource manager all rolled into one. So there's a lot of force in that, and that can be a lot for people to take in. So tell me what it's, but it's wonderful energy when you know how to use it correctly. And so I'm
I think that here, again, like he said many things, but then you have to go into the differentiation because we all have different placement of planets or lines. So that's going, or if it's defined or not. So that's going to really create like a uniqueness in every person. So for instance, to start with, he says it's a money line. I laugh so hard when he said that because I'm like, what do you know? So, but this is the interesting thing. In my chart, both in my human design chart and in my astrology chart, the planet Venus, it's very prominent, and Venus is all about what is my essential needs and value. So value. So if I know what I need, shelter and food, I can give value to that. Therefore, I'm going to go from survival to thriving. So remember, 4521 is a last piece of the tribal that is going to manage the resources of a whole tribe that has gone through the whole process of mating, caring, making sure that everything is needed in in the cauldron, the 40 in the 50, and then it's going to go and find the right people from 44 coming to meet to the 26. So then it's going to arrive to the will center, and that's where everything is going to be taken care of. So 21 is the treasurer. 21 is the one that handles the money. I have 21/6 in my design, ruled by Jupiter. So there's a part of me that I had to learn that one. That not right now, I don't want to control. I'm already like observing. I'm like, I don't have to run this shit. It's not mine. It's not mine. I'm going to find somebody who's going to do the accounting. So I become already like, I delegate there. When I did not do that, I was a control freak. And that's where like I was terrifying to others and to myself, because I was upset that why do I have to run this now? Interesting thing, I have the 45-5. So I only have two five lines in my chart, and they're both Venus. The fifth line, where, is about being projected outside and what people see you. I know that I'm so good with my 45-5, because the only thing that I'm really connected is to giving the people the possibility to find within themselves the value of their own resources. And resources could mean money, because resources is about talents. It's about how can I educate myself to another level? How can I create even a more dialectical relationship with myself, where I'm going to create more self-inquiry that is going to give me another perspective that I can actually become more sovereign. So my whole spiel is about sovereignty, but sovereignty comes with accountability, and it comes with self-reflection, and it comes with like, okay, I'm going to learn something new so I can actually be the person that I came to be. So that 45-5 that is Venus there, conscious, is actually giving the tribe the possibility to look inside. Don't look at me. I don't want you to copy me. I hate followers. Like, don't copy me, because you're not going to copy. Actually, it's going to be very bad when you copy me. Just go ahead and do your thing. So I'm here to basically provide a platform for people to engage in that sense. So for instance, I do readings, but I do something else that is very valuable for me. I do study groups. I don't do workshops. I do study groups. Study groups is a very different thing to facilitate, because in a study group, you're really concerned about the learning process of the people. It's not about me saying, I know, there's so many teachers can recite everything. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in like what emerges in the relationship of a study group. So it's a small penta, it's never more than 5, including myself. And what emerges is like, I have groups that have been going on for a while, where we have established an incredible community. And the last thing I'm going to say about 45 is community. 45 is about community. It's about communion. Communion is community. It's when you are together, in the same resonance. So that's why I think that one is a very powerful channel, but it can be very difficult if you don't know how to use those things.
Yeah. So you've said a lot of things here, and I want to, respond to a few of them. I always feel weird when I say respond, because I'm not, that's not my strategy, but I still want to do it, just like you like to be invited. So the energy of that 21, it being defined by your Jupiter, you're going through your second Saturn return. And I remember the big thing that Karen Curry Parker teaches, that, when we master the lessons of Saturn, we get the gifts of Jupiter. And I know some people kind of teach it the other way around, but I really loved that. And I think that's interesting, because your 21 is a 6-line gate. So now you're really this role model of managing the resources in a way that's not about the power. It's really about the seeing to the next.
Absolutely.
Thing.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you noticed this, because you went through your second Saturn return last year. When the Chinese says that when you are in the 60th year is the most lucky of all numbers, because it's 12 times 5 elements. Now, this doesn't happen on your 60th birthday. It happens on your 59th. So on your 59th, you have your second Saturn return, and you have your 5th Jovian cycle. So that's why this year is when you are able, if you have done the work, and you have done Chiron work, which is super important, and I can talk a little bit about that too. Then you can actually sit down and kind of go like, oh, why do I want to do the next 30 years? I want to live another 30 years, because I have the goods right now where I can sit down. I don't have to hustle. And as you know, with the role model, it's not about doing, it's about being. So I just have to be. And I have a lot of 6 lines. So I'm actually being me. I don't have to engage that much. So the triple split gets engagement in a way that is okay with me. I don't have to go out there and go like, hey, none of that. I do get the connections, but not like that.
Yeah. Right. And it's really cool to watch how you are so just like, hey, this is who I am. And like, for example, in the group, there was a time when someone, you do these really lengthy, involved, contemplative posts where you're kind of putting out your musings on whatever the subject is, in a way that is very much for you and whoever else it connects with. But, someone said, I don't understand this. And you were like, basically in a very polite way, you were like, then it's not for you. Bye. You were like,
Well, no, what I did say to
it.
her, I did not say bye, but what I
No,
say is like,
I didn't mean
yeah,
that you
no,
said
no,
that,
because it's like I create content that is very related to like the artistic way I have expressing myself. I have a very abstract way of connecting, but in the same way, there's a logic happening there of how I do things. Now, when you work with art, you don't have to explain the art. You put it out there so people, when you hear a song or you read a poem or you even read a text or something, there's some other level of connectivity that happens. So that's what I do when I write. I write weekly. I'm actually writing a book right now. And it's finding the right relationship between what you want to express. And because I write for myself, which is a funny thing, I have a dialogue with myself every day, because I write every day, but I also open up and encourage. I only have one collective channel, and is unconscious is 63.4. I would like
Channel of
to,
logic.
yeah, I would like to offer people the possibility for you at your own pace to connect at your level. I'm not imposing anything. So when this person she was, I think it was a she, I don't remember, it was like, she used the word, I am struggling going through this, I've been going through this many times and I don't understand it. And I was like, oh, of course you don't understand, because I'm very cryptic myself. I don't understand myself. So I said, listen, if it helps you to understand, I come from this background. I'm an artist. I do this and this and that. And then probably when I open up that, she was able to connect to it in another level. So I did leave it open, and I
Yeah.
actually, and this is really one of my strengths, is I am very caring. So when I engage with somebody, she's engaged with me through her own accountability. She says, hey, I don't understand.
Right.
And she's not saying, oh, you're stupid. No, she's saying, I don't understand. I have problem. And I come, 45.5 comes and goes, listen, there's this other way. Maybe if you connect like that. And she was very appreciative. So I have that capacity of listening.
Yeah, that's really a great correction that you just made there, in a way that really opens me up to thinking about things. And I think it takes me back to what you were saying before about the human design knowledge being a transmission. And I think many times people will look at something that is, very much larger than one person's thinking, and they'll go, oh, I don't get this. I can't break it down, and my mind can't absorb it, because they don't allow it to come into them. And so when you stop trying to intellectualize what you're receiving, and you allow it to come into your body, we talk about you talked about how words have power. And I know that's one of the things that for me attracted me to Karen Curry Parker's quantum human design, is because she talks about the power of words, and how when you speak, there are experiments out there where you can speak to water in ugly words and it will be ugly, and you can speak to it in beautiful language and it forms these beautiful visions. And so the way we speak about ourselves matters. And there's still a lot of people who, as they're trying to understand their design and they see glimpses of it that they recognize in the shadows, they get caught up in that language to themselves, like, oh, why didn't I do this? And why didn't I whatever? But, the ability to just say, it's okay. Like the way you phrased it, it's okay. This is what I'm doing.
But I changed that way. I was very guarded. I mean, when I was younger, I was very conditioned to be there for others. And because of situations, my father died when I was young. I was not the oldest of the siblings, but probably the one my mom saw most capable, because I can swear that my mom saw as a manifestor being born, and she was like, oh, what did I do? Because I cried and I cried from day one, and nobody wanted to hold me because I was a pain in the neck. And I cried, and I learned how to speak really early on, and I learned to be so independent. And I mean, I think my father went like, okay, let her be. My mom later with time, that's why I adore her, because she basically saw in me someone she cannot constrain. And she gave me all the possibilities for me to trust myself. In fact, right now, she just suffered a stroke, and I'm going to go down and see her. And she's not really the person she was before. And she's having Alzheimer's. She's 89 years old. She's a very beautiful soul. And I'm feeling not even sad. I'm just like so complete with what she gave me. She gave me these things every day. She said to me, remember that your life depends on your happiness, or your happiness depends on your life. Sorry, it's the other way around. Like, you will make your life happen if you imagine it to be. So she was talking about the law 7, which is the law of attraction, where you understand that everything is vibrational. She taught me music since I was young. So I've been, for some reasons, that I'm doing a big project for the University of Washington School of Engineers. So I've been diving into sacred geometry since the last year. Because of all the thing, I've been studying a lot of sound healing these days. So I've been able to help. So this comes back again to words, like how you speak to yourself, how you actually feeling things. Plants feel you, things feel you. So it is important that however you're going to talk to yourself, or however you're going to bring this material to you, it resonates to what makes you feel good. Otherwise, you will feel it as a restraint. You will feel it like something that you don't want to do, and you're going to be upset about it. I was upset when I didn't know what was going on with me. So I was very pushy, and I was very close. I was like, I was a tyrant. I mean, really, I was. And a lot of people laugh because I have changed a lot. I became more open and more kind. I'm kinder. I'm still feisty, but I have gentle word. Like I embrace my gentleness.
But it's interesting because you just said I was very pushy, and I was very, I think you said, closed. And I think that's just kind of interesting, because the description I originally learned of the manifestor aura is that it's a closed aura and it pushes people forward. So there had to be a certain amount of like relief in learning that this thing that you were trying to change was actually something you were meant to embrace and stop.
Yeah, when I was little, I would come home crying, Mom, what's going on? Half of the class hates me. And she goes, and the other half? I think they like me. Stay with the other half. She would always be very logical like that. She would not engage in my drama. But what can I do in order to get everybody? She goes like, why do you want everybody to love you? Life is more spicy like that. And I was like, okay. So she always like gave me this, but I would be so aware of going into a place. And this is beautiful because now it has changed. So for the last year and a half, probably 2 years, I have embraced my manifestor persona, because it's persona. Because I also left New York after 27 years. I left it during the pandemic. So I engaged myself in a lot of space for myself to understand who I was. And that's when I dove really deep into human design and other modalities, and say, okay, so I'm here, 50 something, post Chiron, all these things happen to me, I'm just going to be able to be myself, but I don't have a lot of conditioning. I'm not close to my family. I'm not close to the life in New York. I already separated, divorced, whatever. I can give myself the permission, which is really funny because you don't need a permission, but that's what I felt. I can give myself the permission to be myself and to have fun with it. So I engage in many communities since the pandemic, but here and there. And I noticed that my biggest triggers were in communities I will enter, especially when there are more than 5. Because I don't know if you remember, Ross said that when you're a manifestor and you go more 5, you get lost. So your manifestor 1, magical 1 gets gone. And you're like, oh my God, what happened? It's like and you don't want to, you want to have like, that's the thing. So I remember going into these communities and at the very beginning being like quiet, and that's not me. And so I will be very upset. Then I will go into another community and I will be too forceful, and I will get immediately like that. So I did start some sort of therapy format that is called Hakomi method, and is involving a lot of somatic practice. I've done a lot of trauma work as well. So it's been—
What was it called?
Hakomi, HAKOMI. KOMI,
Okay.
and it involves the body. So you study the body, you study what the other person is saying, how is it saying. I did a lot of I don't know, workshops on facilitation, on like body language. I really educated myself in the last 3 years enormously. So I don't want to fit in communities, but I want to be able not to get kicked out. Remember how we met? It's like you got the group. Then Denise I met before, and she was always very sweet, and she's still very sweet and loving person. And she was never felt like, she was very inviting towards me. It's like, yeah, post. But I remember wanting to post something, and I'm like, oh, I have to inform here because it might disrupt the energy of this new person that I don't know. And that's how we got engagement, because I asked, I was not asking for permission. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. If you feel that this is not correct, just give me. And that's how we started talking, because I became aware that in communities, you still have to inform. I'm not asking for permission. So I have changed a lot. And the last 2 years, I've been in communities learning stuff. And it's amazing to see how I enter the communities, full manifester, funny, inquisitive person, and people accept immediately. And I don't have to even say I'm this, I don't have to apologize. So all my apologies are gone. I am who I am. And when I have to say things, we had private conversations, I go like, no, this, and that's who I am. And so I don't feel at all that my energy is rejected, because I enter to any place with awareness of what my energy is and what it can cause.
And it's interesting. We're getting towards the top of the hour, and so I don't want to get too far into it, but I noticed you were probably the first person I spoke with after in person, like had a Zoom with about doing this, when I had only done one of these. I had other people I was messaging with, but I'll be honest, and I think you are already aware of this. So when we spoke, I was very much like, wow, totally observing you in your true manifestor energy. Because, there are certain things that people don't know, like manifestors pretty much always talk fast. Okay. And you don't interrupt them. And when you do, you're probably not going to like how it goes. And I was so new to the idea of doing this that I had to really honor my authority and say, okay, you need to wait till you have clarity and make sure that you're ready to interview this defined will manifestor with this, this is really strong energy, and you're already, off the roof. You're the sixth line. You're really, this is who I am. I am not changing for anybody. I will be kind. And you were always very kind. It wasn't like that, but it was very much like, okay, I need to be able to know that I know what I want out of this before I can, it would have been like if I was just trying to decide, how to open up the town. I'm going to let this train come through, right?
I love it. And I love that you waited and you kind of like felt it was the right time, and you got confident, and you've been running it for 2 months and some, and it's great. And so, oh, wow. So 3 months, that's good. That's even better. So it's interesting because at the very end, I'm not nervous anymore, because I know that if I enter correctly, like I can feel it. I can feel that even if there's a little bit of roughness, I will say, it's also the possibility that is open to talk about it, to have an inquiry and go like, is this okay? And because I'm very open, I always been very open. I always been very kind. I always been very caring. I'm extremely caring, but because I didn't know how to use that energy, I ended up attracting the wrong situations and people, and therefore I'm becoming very angry about it. So I don't want to come across as an angry person, because I'm not. That energy I use for work, like for creation, because it's very strong. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And one of the things that I want to say before I forget is, the reason why I want to engage with this, and I like that we're engaging on personal stories, is because if there's anything that I can say, and I say this in my artistic statement and everything, I'm here to inspire other people to be sovereign. I mean, this is not about follow me or anything. It's not that I don't care. Of course, if you subscribe to my Substack or you come to my study groups, I will love it. Only if it's okay for you, if it's correct for you. Otherwise, I'm not looking for followers or stuff like that. So that's why I come and go and put the stuff, because if it's one image, one word, one soundbite of what I say connects to something deeper in you, I've done my work.
Mhm.
That's for me is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I do, there's one thing that I want to make sure I touch on that we talked about that you mentioned when we were connecting the last time, that I really, really loved, which was when you were talking about what it's like to have a defined will, because I have a defined will also. And, there's a point where, the will, it obviously, we can push and push and push, but we have to rest and restore. And if we don't, like, I know for me, I worked off my defined will for probably, 50 years, that, I have other motors, but that's the one I could always push. And it took me years of,
Exhausting.
right. But you said something about the will
Yeah.
that,
So what I realized is, like, there are two places where I was mostly conditioned. I mean, the sacral that is open, and obviously, but it was the G center. It was pretty intense for me, because I kind of sensed that I didn't want to be in certain places because I will morph into them. So I was trying to be too careful about that, but I didn't pay attention a lot to the will. And in the last few years, I realized that that was probably the one that I was most conditioned. And what I said to you the other day is, like, just because I can doesn't mean that I have to. Just because I
or you
can do
should,
it,
or you should, right?
it's like, I don't have to. Just because, I will go into places or be with group of people, and people immediately go like, hey, Monika, like, they will scan around and go immediately asking me to do something or being in charge of something. First of all, don't ever tell the manifesto what to do. Like, if I come to you and I say, hey, do you want some help? I have some ideas like that. Yeah, but don't come and tell manifesto, can you take care of this and that? Because first of all, I'm going to be looking at you like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, no, like, so this is interesting. So I was getting a lot of that, but I was very conditioned. And what I was doing, instead of like saying, no, I don't want to do it, I will prove to you, whoever was asking me, that I could do it, just to give you like, but it was so much against what it was correct for me, because I was responding with spite and not with my authority. One, I was not waiting. Two, I was just getting this self-validation. And again, Venus is about, Venus, never mind. Like, it's about self-validating yourself, improving. So I just learned that I don't have to do it like that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think, isn't your Venus, your Venus was your 45, right? And you're 63. Okay. My Venus is 26, which you have open on the will, but I have I have all the gates of the will center defined, but then the channel that defines it is the 2644. So that's like the ultimate BS detector, right? So, but I've always felt like, the combination of a defined will and an open sacral, like we can feel like we are just always going to have to do things just by pure willpower. And I've had to really resist when coaches and people try to tell me, well, you just make a goal and you stick with it, and it's like, no, I make a goal and I reevaluate it. And when it's no longer correct, I change my goals, and that might happen daily. And I think we're in the rarity with the defined will, right? So it's obvious that, you would look at your open G and your open sacral for where you might be conditioned. But I think when we have a defined will, because so many people are open and they take on our energy from that center and they amplify it back to us, there's so much that we then receive, like kind of almost like pushed back at us because of it. There's so much pushback to our defined will, like, oh, you're all about yourself. I remember I still am scarred by like a friend telling me, oh, I talked to this old friend and they said, oh, you talked to Kathy, she still just only talk about herself. And it's like, well, that's the defined will. And I have my throat, the only channel is from the identity center. So like learning that was correct for me was huge.
Yeah. I think it's important to know, like, I have made a cut of talk about vibration and everything. In 2020, I basically left my life behind, all of it. all of it. Like my whole world, I was in the art world, whatever that means, New York, whatever. And I came here and it was fantastic that nobody was talking to me and everybody was like over masked. Didn't do any of that. And I was like, yeah, vacation. I don't have to see anybody. This is awesome. Awesome. And that's why I started engaging voluntarily in groups that I wanted to investigate, not that I had to. So
Yeah.
I knew a lot of people in Miami. It's funny because of the COVID thing and thing, I never really get to see them anymore because it kind of like our relationships kind of drop because I'm very interested in different things. So I don't really talk to people from my past, and every single relationship that I have connected to and that I have created really meaningful connections are people that I met after 2020. And we're still, some of them I have not even met in person. We will eventually, but doesn't matter because I realized that it's not about like the normality of things. It's about what can I, like one of the things that I say also is like, I'm here to be of service. I'm here to be of service for humanity and to be my very best. That's all I can do. I'm not here to try to make things and gaining stuff. That's why I got away from Instagram and stuff like that. I saw very painfully people pushing and hustling, and it pains my heart to see people trying to get likes and trying to get attention, and they're just losing their energy. Especially if you have an open sacral, it's like, forget it, like you're gonna die there. You're just gonna die. So, and you say, so how do I get people? I say, be creative. There's so many other ways. You and me, we lived 29 years with no internet.
Yeah.
And 29 is with. I'm actually writing about it this week on that because there's so much amazing opportunities that AI is going to give us. This is the last field I'm writing about AI, and I'm writing about that we as human beings are the ultimate machine. If we don't know our mechanics, we're going to build a world that is failed because our mechanics are not performing the best way. So everything that is created with AI, it comes from us. So if we are non-self, imagine all the AIs are going to be a replica of non-self. So it is imperative to become to our own mechanics and our own selves so we can build, because there's no way back. It's like the internet. Once it was in, it was on, it started. So yeah.
That's a great point. Listen, I know we're getting to the top of the hour here. It's funny because we had a question from Lynn that you can read later.
Yes.
She posted the question, and then as soon as she posted it, she goes, "Oh, while I was typing that, you answered it."
Was it, and what was it? We don't know.
Her question was just about, she wanted to know about your experience with the OpenG, and she literally was typing it when you were talking about your OpenG. So,
well, if OpenG, I can close a little bit. Like OpenG is very important. For instance, for me, that's where my nodes are. And that's my Neptune. So, and you know that those are like, all the gates on the G are part of the cardinal and part of the ordinal. They're really giving us a direction. So even if you don't have anything, you know that that center is all about the gravity and how and where and if we're going to be able to synthesize our experience. So it is very important to see. I have 2 hanging gates. I have the 15. So I am very much aware that I need to find my own rhythm. And the 10 connects to 3 other ones. So I have a plethora of opportunities to see how I'm going to be linked, but it's understanding. And one thing I didn't mention that is also important in the whole process is doing shadow work. Yeah. Jungian shadow work, super important to be able to understand open centers and hanging gates. Super important in the process. Yeah.
Okay. So we are out of time, and I really appreciate your in-depth here. And it's just I just want to comment because you've said probably 3 hours worth of stuff in 1 hour, and that's one thing. If anybody knows a manifestor, don't ever try to get them to slow down. You just got to keep up or pause and go back. And so that's what's great. This will be available on replay. So if there were things that went too quickly, you can go back and watch the replay, pause it, digest, do
or
whatever.
ask questions in the replay, and
Yes.
I'd be very happy to respond. Sometimes I do it by voice, like I did 2 days ago with somebody. I like to engage in community. I'm very generous that way.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, and I just really want to thank you, and we'll put how to connect with you if someone wants to do so. We can put that, you can drop that in the comments. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, when I put it there, it will be available in the description, how you can connect with Monika. So, but every week we share stories here of how human design has changed someone's personal narrative. And I hope and how you speak about that, you know, how you speak about yourself matters, as Monica was saying today. So if you're ready to rewrite your personal story, you can DM me or set up a free discovery call at kathybashanko.com. Want to thank you everyone again and have a great day. And if I didn't give you an opportunity to say goodbye, is there anything else you wanted to end on?
No, it's all good. Thank you
Okay.
again. It's been
All right.
wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.